Court is now in session.
Hello, Your Honor. I am here today to prove that Mrs. Maloney is truly guilty and deserves to be appropriately punished for her wrongdoings of killing her husband, Mr. Patrick Maloney. As seen here by the abrasions on Mr. Maloney's head, this was no accident, nor was it made by any metal of any kind. It was made by the very evidence that Mrs. Maloney had fed to the detectives and the police officers at the scene of the crime. The length and depth of the hole in Mr. Maloney's head fits the direct characteristics of the leg of lamb that Mrs. Maloney said she was going to be cooking for her husband that night. If I think about it, should we really even be calling her Mrs. Maloney anymore, considering the fact that she killed her husband? Mary Maloney confessed to her head being in the right mind during the night that we interviewed her. The story seemed unclouded and very clear. There was no possible way that she could plead temporary insanity solely based off the fact that she was of high emotions during her pregnancy. I would now like to bring a witness to the stand to testify against Mrs. Maloney. Hello, I'm Mrs. Barrymore, and Mr. Maloney was always a very nice man. He came over and fixed my rain gutters while I was watching my two boys. He was never rude to my boys. Oh, how he was so nice. It was around 5:30 when I began making dinner for my family. I was going to tell my now ex-husband some very sad news. I was looking outside my kitchen window. It aimed directly into the Maloney's front room sitting area. I was admiring the lovely paintings Mrs. Maloney had in their house. Yes, the paintings. When all of a sudden I saw Mrs. Maloney run from the front room into the kitchen, seeming in almost a panic with something that seemed like a red liquid on her hands. What I now assumed was Mr. Maloney's blood. A few moments later, I was sitting on my front porch, pondering on what could have happened when I saw Mrs. Maloney walk quite peacefully down the front of their house. I tried to ask if she was okay. I heard a loud bang, almost like a glass shattering not too long ago. She never answered. I now know it was the glass Mr. Maloney had smacked his head into, causing it to shatter. I also saw no one go into their house after Mrs. Maloney left. Mrs. Maloney left around 6 p.m. that tragic night. The reason being that I was quite worried after hearing and seeing what I now know was the murdering of Mr. Maloney. Thank you, Miss Barrymore. Given the fact of the witness and the examination of the murder weapon, there is no possible way that this could have been done by anyone other than Mrs. Maloney. This here solidifies Mrs. Maloney's guiltiness. Thank you all for your time, and I pray you all take this information to heart and consider, even though she is small, that anyone and everyone is capable of murder. Good day. Hello,
Hey, girl. Ow!
Hello, you're